Hey guys, doing another armchair review today, still getting over this flu. So I've been just doing a lot of movie catch-ups. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to sit down and just watch a bunch of flicks. The missus has been working for a little while, so she's home a lot, so we do like to spend our time together. But being sick has given me the excuse to lock myself up in the man cave and just quarantine myself away from her and watch movies. And my latest one, after a very, very long time, Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Now, this is the sequel to Return of the Living Dead, which is just a classic zombie horror. That film, when I saw it, I was about 14 years old and it scared the bejesus out of me. I've seen it 100 times since. It still freaks me out. That soundtrack in that movie is very unnerving. If you've seen the movie, then you know that opening sequence, that title song, is just creep factor of 110. But I saw it at the movies with a friend of mine. It was like one of the first zombie films, or one of the first horror films I'd ever seen at the theatre. I can't remember, I think we had free tickets or something, but me and Michael, my mate, went to the theatre and watched this movie. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. The effects in that movie, gore-wise, were astounding. And yeah, it's promoted as a comedy, but for me, there was nothing really funny about it. It was strictly horror. And the idea of these creepy zombie things crawling out of the ground and then eating your brain, ow, biting my own tongue, was completely unnerving. And yeah, this is where it kind of differentiates a little bit from the George A. Romero zombie franchise. Night of the Living Dead is actually referenced as a film, so as in the canon. But what they say in that movie, Return of the Living Dead, is that the events of that film actually happened. And when George A. Romero wanted to make the film, he was given strict guidelines by the military not to actually reveal any true secrets, but it was based on a true event. And those zombies from that true event were put into canisters and ended up being the zombies that unleashed hell in that first movie. One of the canisters is opened, and then the infamous Tar Man escapes, and all this horrible gas which kind of like reanimates all the dead. So that's where this one kind of picks up. That first film, the town at the end of the movie was nuked, but we still have got a lot of the canisters in possession of the military, and they're transporting them across the country for some reason, and they're going through this small town, and one of the canisters falls off the back of a truck. Some local kids find a canister, accidentally open it, and once again, bang, zombie holocaust coming through. Now, the big difference between this one and the first one is that this one is definitely a comedy. They don't play it straight at all, except for one scene, which I'll get into soon. Sorry if I'm going out of frame here. I've got to make sure I stay in check. Hand holding, freestyling here. So yeah, it's definitely, like, except for one scene that really kind of scared the hell out of me. But yeah, this movie's definitely playing for laughs. And I don't know if that's a detriment, because that first film was so groundbreaking, and the effect that they wanted to get was to make you laugh and scare you. And upon multiple viewings, yeah, that first one, I can see the humor in it, but it's dark humor, and that movie still does, it takes the zombies very seriously, and there's no mucking about. They want to eat your brains. Whereas the zombies in George A. Romero, they'll just eat you. From, like, they'll bite everything and tear you apart and eat you. Whereas this one, the canon is that they just want your brains. Which is a little bit weird though, right? Because biting through your skull would not be an easy effort, I can imagine. Like, the bone's pretty tough. So having all these zombies just kind of biting people's heads like with like relative ease, like, you know, a soft-boiled egg, and pulling their brains out, doesn't make a lot of sense. Hey, I know I'm talking about zombies here, but I'm just kind of like having my thoughts on it, right? And one brain, one person being surrounded by a dozen zombies, it's not going to feed the whole lot. You guys are going to go hungry. So the whole canon where they're just eating the brains, although that is infamous, a lot of people kind of refer to zombies as, you know, brain eaters. And that's the power of these movies, is they're pretty popular. But yeah, the whole brain eating thing to me was just not quite right. I couldn't kind of get my head around the, pardon the pun, get my head around the logistics of it. But hey, you go with it anyway. So yeah, whereas that movie was kind of like trying to scare you and make you laugh, this one is just definitely just trying to make you laugh. Okay, cast. So we do have, checking my thing again. So we do have a couple of the cast members from that first film returning. We've got the late great James Cameron returning as Ed, and Tom Matthews is back as Joey. You might recognise Tom Matthews primarily from Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, where he plays the role of Tommy Jarvis. He was great in that role too. And he was really good in the first Return of the Living Dead. Like he played more of like a punk character who was like, exposed to the gas virus, and him and James Cameron in this one are exposed to the zombie gas once again, and their characters follow the same arc. So that was fine. Having the guys back as different characters was totally cool. They were very popular in that first movie, and it was good to have them back in the next one. We also have got in this one Michael Kenworthy as Jesse Wilson, the young kid. He was also in the remake of The Blob. He hasn't done a lot of movies since, but he was pretty good in this film. We have got Suzanne Snyder as Brenda, Marsha Dietland as Lucy Wilson, Dana Ashbrook as Tom, and Philip Bronze as Doc Mandel. We also have Mitch Pileggi in here too. Mitch Pileggi turned up as a Sarge, as one of the soldiers who was shooting all the zombies dead at one point. Primarily known from X-Files and from Shocker. So I was very happy to see Mitch Pileggi turn up here. Now, like I said, the plot pretty much follows a couple kids inadvertently set off the canister and the zombies attack this town, which is actually like just being built. So a lot of the homes are not actually inhabited yet, and they're still being constructed. So not a lot of people around, just like a couple families, and the zombies attack. That's basically it. And then you got the kids, the main core cast, trying to escape the zombies and having a few laughs along the way. Now, when the zombies do appear, when that gas first time hits the cemetery, instead of like being a real creepy, scary kind of a scenario like it was in the first one, it's definitely played for the laughs. So you got zombies coming out of the ground, and they're getting their hands stepped on. They're quickly pulling them away. One zombie pops up out of the ground, and she can't see, so she puts her glasses on. Another guy is coming out of the ground, and he gets stepped on and pushed back down again. And most of the zombies, the way they're portrayed by the extras are definitely to the extreme. Like they're drunk, they're tripping over, and they're just really uncoordinated, which I suppose is pretty natural for a zombie if they were real. They've definitely upped the goofy factor about it more than the creepy factor. And I did watch some of the behind the scenes, and one of the chief makeup guys actually didn't really like the way the direction of the film was going. He kept asking the director, Ken Wiederhorn, he was the director, but he definitely wanted to play like more of a Laurel and Hardy kind of scenario, whereas the chief makeup artist didn't really like the way that was going. And apparently a lot of the key staff behind the scenes didn't like the way the film was going, but they weren't directing it, so they did kind of go along with it. One of the chief hilarious scenes in the film you'll find is at the end when the zombies are getting killed by the main good guys via electricity, because even putting bullets in the heads of these zombies isn't going to stop them. They have to use electricity to kill them. There's one zombie that is dressed up exactly like Michael Jackson from Thriller, does a little dance and a spin and falls down dead. So they kind of took advantage of that. One of the zombies turned up in costume, so they made him do that. That was definitely the kind of humour they were going for on this one. The zombie effects were good. A lot of dry zombies in this one, if you know what I mean. Not a lot of blood and guts and gore and horror in that regards. They're more character design. Very dry. One lady had maggots wiggling out of her skin, and red jaws ripped off, and faces punched in, a lot of goo. But the zombies were very, very dry. Even the tar man in this one wasn't quite slimy as that tar man from that first film, which was totally horrific. But in this one, the tar man essentially just had a little cameo, whereas the tar man in that first film was a central piece of the film and had one of the truly iconic, horrific moments in the whole film. This one is just a little side note, and he's bumped off and you don't really see much of him ever again. But even he is not as good looking as that first zombie. But most of the other ones, yeah, they're kind of very dry looking. Small critique. Once again, the lore of these films, the Return films, the zombies can only really be destroyed by fire or completely destroyed or electrocuted, as this film will have you believe. So even a bullet to the head won't stop these zombies. So I thought that was a pretty good take on it. So they've got the military shooting these zombies, and nothing's stopping them. They're relentless in their attack. The other film, the first film, I'm going to keep comparing them because the first one was I just love it so much. the amount of zombies in that film seemed truly overwhelming, whereas this one, it is a much smaller budget, and the amount of zombies did seem less. So, and that's where the zombies' power lies, not in the individual zombie, but in their crowd attack. When you're completely overwhelmed and surrounded by zombies, that's when you're in trouble, because one-on-one, you can dispatch a zombie fairly easily, but yeah, in a crowded scenario, that's when you find yourself in a lot of trouble. So the film is good. Like, I'm here comparing it to the first one and not really giving it a lot of love, but I really do enjoy it. It's fun. It's a good follow-up to that first one, and I was waiting for it to come out on Blu-ray for a long time, and to have Scream Factory release such a nice cover as well was really cool. Like, the artwork on these covers they release is amazing, and the transfer is really good. It's Blu-ray, but they really made it scrub up quite nicely. I'm just opening up the disc for a second. So what I like also about these, put that there upside down, is that you also get the original cover in the back, so you can turn it around if you want and have the original color, the original cover on display. So I thought that's really cool. So yeah, the film is definitely a lot of fun. But if you want to watch a serious, scary, horror-based zombie film, don't check this one out. But the one scene, like I said, about the one scene that I mentioned that really did kind of scare me a bit, and it is kind of infamous. When other reviewers talk about this film, this one scene actually did get it right, is when the kids are at the hospital and young Jesse, played by Michael Kenworthy, leaves the other members of his team to go wandering through a hospital by himself, and he encounters a zombie downstairs, and this big, tall, creepy zombie is trying to kill him, and his sister turns up with a shotgun just as the zombie's about to attack him. She shoots the zombie and blasts it in half. And then the zombie keeps coming, it gets up on his arms and still walks at them trying to attack. And it was quite a really effective scene. So they actually used two actors in that one. They had a tall guy with legs playing the first version, and then they had an actor who had no legs played the other part after the zombie had been shot in half, and he often got around on his hands. So that was really quite effective. It was a really scary moment because in that scene they took the zombie seriously and he was a threat, and it was really unnerving. This kid was alone in an isolated environment with this creepy zombie, and when they shot it in half, it just kept coming. And I thought that scene in the entire film was the most effective and the most scary part, and I really wish that the film had gone along that way more than anything else. Zombies to me should be scary. I mean, The Walking Dead, through most of the seasons, have got that right. And Romero, of course, is an absolute legend when it comes to making these films. His first 3 films specifically were truly horrifying zombie films. Land of the Dead was okay, but everyone after that was kind of a little bit mediocre. But yeah, zombies for me should be about humans and where we're gonna end up. I mean, they're us, and to see us decaying and falling apart and just so simple-minded, but just wanting to follow our basic instincts and eat you and pull you apart. I mean, the idea of being eaten alive completely terrifies me. I mean, that would be horrific. It'd be so painful and gross. Return of the Living Dead, they did go a different way, just after the brains. So, not necessarily a conceit I can go with, but I do love that first film. This one I enjoyed a lot too. Return of the Living Dead Part 3 was a unique take on the zombie franchise, pretty much from the zombie perspective. It was the lady, I can't remember what her name is, Part 3, starring, I remember her from the OC, Melinda Clarke. Basically Romeo and Juliet kind of a story where a guy and a girl are trying to leave town, they're in love, and they have a bike accident, and she becomes a zombie, and then it pretty much just follows her progress as she slowly degrades and becomes this freaky thing. And then there was Part 4, Rape to the Grave. There was a Part 4 and a Part 5, but don't even talk about them because they're terrible. So yeah, the first 3 films, the first 3 in the series for the Return of the Living Dead are worth a watch. Specifically that first one. That one is iconic, and it's really worth a check out if you haven't seen it. If you want to see a scary movie with some cool zombies, some really gory special effects, and some truly horrific scenes with a sprinkling of light comedy, check it out. This one yeah, I recommend it. It's a decent follow-up. Like I said, it's all about the laughs in this one, but it is fun. So anyway, guys, that's my review, my armchair review on Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And that's all I've pretty much got to say on it. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking in, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.